Hi y'all, welcome back to my channel. My name is Maverick Moses, a writing coach and author of the soon-to-be self-published young adult dark urban fantasy novel Karma's Children. Today I'm doing things a little differently and going a lot more informal and casual with my video today because I'm going to be doing what's called a tag video, and I'm going to be doing the story idea writing tag. This tag was originated by Bethany Atazadeh and by the Brooke, and I'm going to link those channels down below in case you want to watch their videos on this story ideas writing tag. But basically I'm going to be going through a couple of questions and answering them based on my own story idea background. And you're going to hear a little bit more about my work in progress, Karma's Children, which will be published by the end of 2018. If you like this more informal style to the videos where I have like a glass of wine and it's a lot more casual and it's not as scripted as I usually do, go ahead and give me a thumbs up and leave a comment down below so that I know to do more videos like this in the future. Without further ado, let's go ahead and get into that story idea writing tag. Number 1, current story. What is your current story idea that you're working on right now? Right now I'm working on a young adult supernatural thriller and dark urban fantasy novel named Karma's Children. In Karma's Children, I embody karma as a physical being, a woman with the power of issuing out good and bad karma to deserving parties and keeping the balance between good and evil. When she dies, her powers will be inherited by her children, but for some reason her 3 teenagers who are going through high school right now are experiencing their powers early before she's died, and she hasn't told them anything about it yet, so they have no idea what's going on, and it's this big mystery of what's happening to them while trying to figure out who exactly they are. Number 2, spark of inspiration. Do your ideas begin with characters, plot, world building, or something else entirely? I would say that my story ideas primarily start with characters and plot. I would say definitely the characters drive the plot line forward, but I do start with a central idea of how the plot line is going to act. So I guess it would start with plot line at a very basic and minimal level, and then I create the characters and I let the characters drive the plot line forward. But I do consider myself a plotter in that I try to outline the entire plot line from start to finish before I even started working. So I did that for Karma's Children, and granted, because the characters tend to drive the plot line forward, there are times where the outline doesn't quite fit or mash in the way that I expected it would because of the way the characters are developing. And in that sense, then the characters do drive the plot line forward. And I do become more of a pantser in that respect, but I do try to stay in the plotting aspect of things to keep things more organized and keep the plot line moving forward. Number 3, brainstorm. How do you puzzle piece your story elements together? Do you start with the ending and make your way to the beginning, or vice versa? I definitely start with the beginning and make my way to the end. I will say when I'm outlining the entire story, when I get to that climax section, I'll work backwards a little bit so that I can figure out the points that happen right before the climax and the points that happen right before that. And you'll learn actually a little bit more about how I do that in my video on how to write the climax, or how to outline the climax of the story, and I'll link that down below in case you want to watch that. It's part of my Outlining 101 series, and it's the final part of that Outlining 101 series. Number 4, keep or toss. How do you know when you want to keep or dump a story idea? When I come up with a completely new idea for a book, I typically research it a little bit more and see if there's anything else very similar out there. And if there's something pretty similar out there, I try not to do it. Karma's Children definitely did not fit anything that was really similar out there, which is why I really wanted to start writing Karma's Children in the first place, because I've never seen anything like that before. When I talk about concepts or scenes that I had originally planned in my outline for a book idea, for example, Karma's Children, when I'm writing it, as I said before, the characters tend to drive the plot line forward, so sometimes a scene that I had originally thought would happen at a certain point in my plotting of the outline, I noticed that once they get to that point, the characters aren't quite in that mindset yet, or they're not going to ever be in that mindset at all, and I completely scrapped that scene from my outline because the characters didn't develop in the way that I thought that they would. Number 5, original idea. How much of your original idea for your story is actually used once everything is finished? So kind of like what I said earlier in the question before this, that the characters tend to drive the plot line forward, and I do have to scrap a scene here and there if I see that the characters aren't driving the plot line in the way that I originally thought. I will say, because I am a plotter and I did outline the entire Karma's Children's book from start to finish, and it was like ended up being like a 30-page outline. I want to be able to plan the entire book in that way, so I do tend to keep probably about like 80 to 90% of what I originally outlined, but there are just those few exceptions where the characters drove the plot line in a way that I didn't anticipate. Number 6, hide or share. Do you share your book ideas with friends or keep them a secret? I will say I have probably about a dozen to 20 solid book ideas that I keep in my bullet journal that I want to eventually develop into a story and into a book. I do share a couple of them, some of the more developed ones that I have with some of my close friends and family, just to kind of get their take on it, especially because most of the time when I have a book idea, I don't really know what the climax is going to be like, how the plotline is really going to drive forward, or anything like that. I just kind of know the overall idea and basic concept of it, and then I kind of get their opinions and their take of like what they think that they would see that the story go in, and I maybe either use that or try to go in a different direction to kind of confuse their mind and add a little plot twist to it or something like that. But I do share some of my ideas, but it's more of the ones that I think that I could develop more into a actual book or into a story. Number 7, dream. Have any of your book ideas originated with a dream or nightmare? Yes, all of them. All of them can come from my dreams. I have very, very vivid dreams. It's crazy to think of like how vivid it is. And I tell people about my dreams, and they're like, wow, like I've never had a dream like that before, or like I barely remember my dreams, or something like that. And it's crazy because I always have really vivid dreams, and it's most of the time very lucid dreams too, so like I am aware that I'm dreaming, and sometimes I can even kind of control the direction that the dream is going in. My dreams are also very unique in that if a dream started and it seemed to like not really finish because my alarm clock woke me up, the next night that I go to sleep, it will continue from the point that it left off. And it will continue on with that same dream, which I think is even more unique than most people can have from dreams. So Karma's Children was based off a dream that I had. In the dream though, the Karma's Children was actually like a group of like 8, like it was a super huge family of like 8 little like 6-year-olds who like had these like karma powers, and they like kind of semi knew about it but then didn't know about it. They just like didn't really know how to control it, and that's what the dream was like. So that's where the story originally came about from, and I definitely tweaked that a whole lot to make it more of a young adult and make it more of have an actual plot line. Most of the time my dreams don't really have a plot line like a book would. It doesn't really have the you know, inciting incident and rising action and the climax and then the resolution to the story. It's more of with dreams that I have it has like a storyline, but it's like you're just inserted into the storyline because it didn't necessarily begin. You missed the beginning part, and then you missed the end part because you're just living your life essentially in your dream. And so that's what happened with Karma's children too. Like they, the beginning of the dream, the children knew about their powers already, but they just didn't know how to control it. And then the entire dream is them trying to figure out how to control it. And then at the end, they still don't really know how to control it. They're just have these powers of karma in them. So anyway, most of my, or all of my story and book ideas, including my current work in progress, Karma's Children, did originate from a dream. So yes, all of my book ideas come from dreams. Number 8, doppelganger. Have you ever had an idea for a story but then see a similar premise in a book, a TV show, or movie? So I would definitely say that some of my dreams that I like for book ideas, I notice that are kind of similar to TV shows and movies. And like, I mean, if I'm getting all of my book ideas from my dreams, you would kind of expect that to a certain level because my subconscious thoughts are influenced by TV shows and movies that I've already watched. And so my mind kind of interprets that in its own way in my dream and creates this kind of new aspect to the story, but it's still pretty similar to an existing movie or TV show. When I have new book ideas that I think are really unique and creative, as I said earlier, I kind of go and research them to see if anything else is very similar to it. When I researched Karma's Children, and I didn't really see anything that was like that out there, anything that was embodying karma into a physical being or anything like that. Obviously there's, you know, a ton of books out there where children start having really crazy and unique powers, but I didn't feel that Karma's Children really exactly mimicked that. Because it was its own thing. It's its own thing of karma versus just like a regular old power or superhero power. Now, about, I would say like a month or two ago, I realized that Karma's Children is a little bit similar to Final Destination. If you've watched the Final Destination movies, you'll see that most of the like deaths and stuff are like, well, all of the deaths and stuff are like very accidental. Like there's a guy that gets, you know, hit in the head with like a ladder or whatever because he cheated death the first time, and it's an accident that kills him. Very similarly, it's kind of like that with Karma's Children. When the children are issuing their good and bad karma, it kind of happens as a accident because that's how karma is in real life. That's it's not like you do something good and you're gonna get like a superpower or something like that, or you do something bad and you're going to shoot yourself, whatever, I don't know. But it's always like accidents. It seems like it's like a coincidence that something is happening to you because of something that you did earlier in your life. And that's what karma is. It's an action and reaction. You do something and something happens to you. Whether that be a good thing or a bad thing based on what your actions were. So when the children are issuing out their good and bad karma, like especially with their bad karma, and it causes somebody to get hurt or to even die or something like that, it is always an accident that causes the death or the injury. And so that kind of in itself is reminiscent of Final Destination, but as I said before, it's karma doing it, not necessarily like death out to like get you like it is with Final Destination. Number 9, big screen inspiration. Have any of your favorite movies, TV shows sparked ideas for scenes in your book? As I've kind of said earlier, it's all like a chain reaction. The movies and TV shows sometimes insert themselves into my subconscious mind, and then I dream it, and then I somehow create a book idea from it, and then it ends up connecting back to that movie or TV show. So I would say that I'm sure that my book ideas do come from movies and TV shows, but it's not directly. It's always kind of with that middleman of the dream state that I get my ideas from. Number 10, nostalgia. What is the oldest or first story idea you remember coming up with and writing down? I've been writing stories for as far back as I can remember. I was homeschooled, so my mom would have me write stories as kind of part of my homework for my English class. So I would write stories, and usually it would just be like kind of stories of like my life and like my day before or something like that, but I would sometimes create more like an imaginative stories from it. And one story that I did create, I called The Land of Mavian, and I wrote it when I was about like 9 or 10, and my parents even published it into, like self-published it on lulu.com into like an actual book. And it was just like this little tiny super thin book, and it was essentially a children's story, and I remember I drew pictures for it, and like I wrote like a you know, a children's book essentially for it. It was when I was 10 years old, so I honestly like have no idea what it was like looking back on it now. Maybe someday in the future I'll do a reading or something like that of some of my old stories if I can scrounge them up from somewhere, and yeah, maybe someday I'll do a reading of The Land of Mavian. So let me know in the comments down below if you'd like to see that. Alright everyone, that is the end of the Story Ideas writing tag. I hope you enjoyed it and learned a little bit more about me and a little bit more about how I write and come up with stories and book ideas. So if you liked this more informal style that I did to this, please let me know in the comments below and give this video a big thumbs up. So now it's time for me to tag somebody new to do the Story Ideas writing tag. So I'm tagging author Brittany Wang and Write Holly Davis. And I'll link their channels down below so you can go and watch their videos and subscribe to them. And leave a comment in their videos and tell them, hey, Maverick tagged you in the Story Ideas writing tag, so you better go and do it now, huh? Alright, so, yeah, so... I'm sorry. Okay, I've never done any of this, like, informal stuff, and it's kind of really, like, fun and entertaining doing this, but, like, yeah. Why? That's going to do it for this video. As always, thank you so much for watching this video. If you liked it, make sure you give it a thumbs up, and please subscribe to my channel. Feel free to also follow me on Instagram for behind the pages insight into my life and work. Thank you guys so much for watching again, and cheers!